Hey everyone, this is Chris. Welcome back to the channel, and this is your daily Uncut news. So, in the UK, they're trying to prevent a meltdown. So the new finance minister, his name is Hunt. He's like, yo, let's not do those crazy tax cuts that we talked about before. And the markets seem to be rallying on that. Whether or not Prime Minister Truss keeps her job remains to be seen. There were talk before, it was like last week, that both Truss and Kwartung would be out within days. And they were saying, no, we're going to be in here 100%. But I don't see her staying, but we'll see. Also, too, there is a forecast that recession will hit 100%. This is according to Bloomberg, and certainly people keep changing their forecasts. And we're going to get into sort of these kind of things in the future, but I just want to have you be aware of sort of like where we come with these numbers and things like this. One thing that I think is important when you ever talk about this kind of stuff is this sort of like everyone's looking at, what is GDP doing, where are interest rates, what are things going on around the world, and making their best, prediction on things. No one can predict the future 100%, although they're saying 100% looks like there will be a recession. Now, also, too, it depends who you ask. If you ask the Biden and the team, obviously they want to win an election. So they're going to say, no, things are going to be okay. Everyone's all right. However, looks like Republicans do have the advantage. I've been saying that for quite a while. It's pretty tough when gas prices are high, when food price is high. If you're in office, it's tough to win. And the recent polling data, I was looking at this, guys. So they're asking, okay, this is a question. Which party's candidate are you more likely to vote in this year's election for Congress? You can see here, so likely voters, 49% are saying, okay, I like Republicans. Men are 50 to 45, so favoring Republicans, and then women are split 50-50, or are, well, 47-47. It's a better way to say it. And you can actually take a look at this. It's kind of interesting. So Republicans have an advantage at the age group of 45 to 64. You guys can see it there. Whereas Democrats have the advantage of age groups 18 to 44, and then 65 and older is split. So you guys can see numbers for yourself. It's really quite interesting. These kind of break down to always roughly the same. So Republicans take white voters 55 to 40, Hispanic and then black tend to lean Democrat. Asians are not on the list ever because we're just not important and we don't exist. You guys get my joke. And then also, too, it's always the same. If you have a bachelor's degree or higher, you're more likely to vote Democratic. If you don't have a bachelor's degree, if you didn't go to college, you're more likely to vote Republican. And I always find it strange when people act like I'm just making numbers up. I see these same kind of numbers all the time, and it's nothing shocking. The one thing they didn't do in this survey, which is, do urban and rural, but usually people, if you live in the big cities, you're more likely to be Democratic. If you live in the small cities, you're more likely to be Republican. But as a whole, then usually what elections boil down to is you're aiming for people who you can persuade, possibly change their mind, and it's usually women in the suburbs. So that is always interesting because some people just won't change their mind no matter what, which is fine. I'm just telling you that's how the world works. One of the things that I really emphasize in the channel is just I want to tell you guys how the world really works. And so I'll show you a bunch of numbers and sort of where I get my ideas from. Now, you can make the case that we're at the bottom. You can also make the case that the reason why markets are rallying is one, because of the UK, because news, the robots say, hey, I like the news. And, the way these things go is markets don't just go straight down, right? They'll go down, up a little bit, down some more, up a little bit, down some more. And that's what we've seen all year. Whether or not we're at the bottom remains to be seen. I'll show you the numbers I look at. And, I tend to not think that we're at the bottom, but that's just me. And everyone should have can have a different opinion on that. If you take a look at this, so this is saying that, we've been down 25% in the S&P. What has that been? About 9 months. And then the average top to bottom is 38% in bear markets, and average is about 15 to 16 months. So if we're going on average in history, right, and obviously no one knows for sure, but just if you average in history, then that would mean we have another, say, what would that be? Another 9 months? No. 9 minus 15 would be, do my math here, 6. We have another 6 months to go, right, theoretically from top to bottom. And then, theoretically another 13% if we're on average, right? And you got to, make the decision for yourself because, just because an average thing occurs doesn't mean that this is average. This could be a better than average. It could be worse than average, but you want a general sense of what average is. You can see here, like if you take a look at the chart for yourself, say in 1980, it was 430 days till the bottom, etc. And so these are this kind of stuff that I take a look at. Now, obviously, you could get more bearish cases. So like this guy, Mark Mobius, he's like, yo, if inflation is 9%, therefore we need interest to be, say, 10%, something like that. in terms of what the Fed needs to raise. And I want you to understand that sometimes, or not sometimes, when people like this, they go on TV and they represent a fund, they're not actually speaking to you, the audience. They're speaking to their wealthy clients. And keep that in mind. That is an extremely important point, is that they're only speaking to like an audience of, say, 100 people, something like that. And just, regular people like you and I, we're of no concern. So he's speaking to a very specific audience, or the people that go on TV or whatever have specific holdings that they're trying to promote, and that's kind of thing. So just be aware of that. That's how the world really works. Also, too, there's been a little bit more. I was mentioning this to you guys this morning as it was like kind of the headline flashing by, breaking alert kind of thing, that China is going to delay their GDP release. So, you can read that any way you like. One, you could read it like, oh my God, the numbers are probably going to be bad, so they don't want to release it. Or two, the other way you could read it would be that they wanted to let the President Xi's speech sink in, and they wanted to make sure that they didn't report any numbers that would piss him off for real. There's a report in here basically saying that everyone who works over the data and stuff like that, who reports the GDP, were like not eagerly, but attentively, or not attentively, like really, really concentrating on his speech. I can't think of the right word to describe it, but intensely, I will use the word intensely, concentrating on Xi's speech and hanging on every word. One of the things, though, is I've noticed, and this is something that I try to do with you guys, is show you the patterns of things that I'm noticing. So like here, we talked about Goldman Sachs as mixing up the way they reorganize things, and we'll read through the details of this together. So Wall Street Giant plans to once again, this is Goldman Sachs again, Wall Street Giant plans to once again combine its expanded asset management and private wealth business into one unit run by Mark Nachman, according to people familiar with the matter. Goldman will also fuse its investment banking and trading operations under one group by Dan Dees, Jim Esposito, and Ashik Varahan. The money-losing consumer unit will be broken up. So they're reorganizing things, right? And one of the things that I think is a real problem, and I mentioned this to you guys before on the channel, is when you have essentially your savings and stuff like that mixed with risky investments. And when I'm looking at this thing that they're mixing, what is this, asset management and private wealth businesses, it just feels like, if I had to read this, it just feels like there's trying to package as much money together to hide losses. That would be my guess on this thing, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that, because that would be an easy way to do that, right? You're kind of combining money, but like I said, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And the reason why I have that point of view is that I was reading this, and this says here, Goldman is saying, okay, we're going to have this is what they're predicting, a 16% loss in revenue coming with their earnings report. And they're also predicting, there's an analyst predicting 40% loss in profit. So two ways you could read this. One, this is true. Or two, they wanted to set the bar so low that it'll be easy for them to beat estimates. And therefore they say, everyone, we beat. But they're setting the bar pretty low, that Goldman is going to be down 40% of their profits. So we'll see what happens when they report. I think they report this week. I can't remember which day, but it is going to be happening this week. And I'm keeping on this theme. It's interesting because not only Goldman Sachs reorganizing, JP Morgan here, you can see the investment banking chair. So it's Carlos Hernandez. He's going to retire. And also, too, it's a similar thing as well. Over at Credit Suisse, they have another, this investment bank CEO, Meisner, is going to leave. So, it's find it curious that all these big banks are like reorganizing, and some of their big investment banks CEOs / head execs are leaving. So, I read that as bearish. You could one read it as cutting costs. You could read it too as like, well, bull markets are fun, we're all making money. Bear markets not so fun. Time to just take my money and run away. So I don't know. That's just how I read that stuff. Also too, let's see here. Let's go here. If you kind of want to know, like, sort of, and I mentioned before, like, sort of stuff I look at when I'm thinking about, okay, what's the market doing? I take a look at, okay, we're trading at the S&P. You guys can see this for yourself. The number is 18.58. That's the S&P 500 PE ratio. That's the price of stocks in relationship to how much companies earn. So in history, the mean, right, the average is about 16, roughly. Okay, so we're trading higher above than historical averages. And for this number to come down, remember, lower is better. It either would be companies earn more money, or price of stocks come down, or it could be a combination of both. That's the basic gist of it, is that stocks get their value from how much companies earn. And when you read these things like Goldman's predicting a 40% decrease in essentially profits. I'm just like, I don't know. Were you guys, thinking that the market's going to rally? Who's thinking that? And, we're going to find out on Wednesday what Tesla reports. That'll be a big one, I think, because it's kind of a real popular, you could call it a meme stock if you want, but it's a real popular retail stock. If I look at history as well, you can see this as guys. This is the valuation of the stock market compared to GDP. So basically, what's the stock market worth compared to how much the economy grows? And over the trend line, this is their trend line like over time, right? So stocks do go up over time. And we are 18% above the trend line, right? I can see it right there. That's the Buffett indicator. Or you can say, okay, there's another way to look at the S&P 500p, ratio. So you can see, okay, so here's the historic average, right? This is again how much companies earn compared to the price of the stocks. And you could say, okay, we're about 30% above the average. So for me, when I look at this stuff, I feel like we're trading a little bit high. Also, too, interest rates keep going up. And I show you guys these same numbers all the time. The reason why is I want to show you, like, this is how I think about things. So I don't let the news just, like, sway me every single day. I try to, understand the news, right? I don't mean by sway every single day. It's just that the reason why we go through this news all the time, you want to see where things are trending, right? You want to see where things are going. And you want to think about, okay, what am I looking for? Right now we're looking for, are companies earning more money or not? Right? Do the banks feel confident in these kind of things? Like, watch people where they put their money, etc. I'm also looking at currency. So, I can still see the dollar is up 30% compared to the Japanese yen. I can see the dollar is up on the euro 17.83%, right? You can see these things. It's really clear numbers. And so the dollar is still very, very strong this year. I can also see that the 2-year treasury is like 4.44. Look at this. It's really high. The 10-year is at 4.01. So, I get it, guys. We rallied today, but I don't necessarily see bullishness on stocks when I see all these numbers that I'm looking at. And the reason why I mention this is because, and I'm gonna start using Goofy on this channel to describe other people on YouTube or people on TV. But here's the basic gist of it, and I'm gonna call them all Goofy. Okay, is oftentimes many channels out there, they will play really long clips of CNBC. Okay, and what they'll do is they're basically saying, okay, me, stupid YouTuber, I don't know what I'm talking about. So watch someone else that knows what they're talking about on CNBC, and then I'll disagree with said person. And so what a lot of goofy YouTube channels did basically this past couple of years was just agree with everything Kathy Wood said, and everybody loved their channel and become really popular because Kathy Wood is so awesome. That's what people fell for. And this year now, people just pick whatever random CNBC person that they like, and they either agree or disagree, but oftentimes agree, and then they barely understand what's going on. And I've told you before what is going on, and this is the reality of it. When people go on, this is a Bloomberg, for example, but when people go on TV, they're speaking to their particular clients, and what they say is either, again, promoting their particular holdings or trying to keep their clients calm so their clients keep their money with their investment company, so they keep making money. So that's why I call these YouTuber people goofy, because there's a couple things. One is why would I listen to a goofy YouTuber if they're just going to tell you someone else's opinion? So this is why I give you my opinion, because that's my opinion. I show you guys numbers and share my opinion with you. And I just want you to be aware of that is if you're just going to listen to someone that tells you what someone else's opinion is, and then that person changes their mind all the time, it doesn't really make any sense anymore. And I've noticed a trend as well where it's really weird. Some channels are like, oh, I'm just buying every single week because no one can time the market. And then other times they'll be like, well, I don't know, this market was really scary, I'm not buying at all. And that's like, wait, what are you talking about? It doesn't really make any sense. So I just want to mention to you guys that just be careful about goofy people out there who basically spend all their time just showing you clips on CNBC, and understand that people on CNBC oftentimes don't necessarily tell you the full truth, or they're speaking to their particular clients, or they're promoting the holdings that they have. Understand how the world works, and you'll do much, much better. Also, too, I may do a separate video on this because I think it is really worth watching. And like I said, I might do a separate video, but if you haven't seen it already, watch the behind the scenes of January 6th of what Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and Mitch McConnell were doing. Essentially, they're calling the National Guard, calling the governor of Virginia, these kind of things. I really encourage you to watch it, but I'll make a separate video about this. It is important for people to see how serious the attacks were, and how these people felt, because it's not a good situation. All these people are rushing the Capitol, and like, you're worried for your life, and that's a real thing. So do watch this thing. I'm not making it up, and like I said, I might make a separate video of it later. It's a large topic, but I just think it's worth mentioning. And also too, there's two stories with this one. So one is the small story. The microcosm is basically Trump charged more money to the Secret Service to stay in his hotels. And I remember this when he was president. You would always hear about, he would use his hotels and stuff like that for government events or for government employees, this kind of thing. What I didn't know, because you just don't know, as it turned out with the reporting, is that he charged Secret Service 6 times more than the regular rate. So basically, like the regular rates at hotels were like $250, something like that, and he would charge them $1,100, something of that nature, 5-6 times. And one of the things that is important to understand is sort of why I liked Lockheed Martin last year, and this relates to, it's two stories. So one is, Trump overcharged, and two, companies that get government contracts tend to get pretty good deals sometimes, right? And get recurring these kind of things, because government money is essentially money you can count on, and money that they're going to write. So if government makes a promise to you, they're going to write that check and you're going to get that money. And so in a recessionary environments, companies who get government money are generally going to be okay compared to companies that rely on consumer money. So for example, when Apple releases a new iPhone, I don't know how consumers are going to respond, right? It's not guaranteed. Whereas, like, if Lockheed, gets a $100 million, well, maybe more than that, like get like a $500 million contract with the government's going to pay. So those are the kind of things that I'm looking for, and I'm just mentioning to you guys. But yeah, this Trump story thing, the hotel thing, is just a example of how governments are corrupt, and this is all around the world, not just the USA, but contracts with governments are often very lucrative for companies. So that's something I often look for. Trump's top aide is also in the news. The Justice Department is recommending 6 months jail and a $200,000 fine. And if you want to rant and rave about how the government is bad and they're doing all these things and complain about Biden, you can actually do that now on Parler. Kanye West is actually buying Parler, which is really funny. This guy, I don't know, he's always doing different stuff, and it's interesting because you know what? You're free to do what you like with your money. And we're going to read the quote from Kanye why he's buying Parler. And if you don't know, this is like a conservative form of Twitter, basically social media. My understanding, though, of it is that there's a lot of obscenities and falsities on it. And essentially, this is sort of where the issue becomes, is that, yes, I do believe in free speech. I got no problem with that. But a company can decide whether or not they, will allow certain types of users on there. So just for example, if I want to, go on Twitter or whatever and to say, I hate all rap people and rap people are bad and I hate Kanye West, and do that all day, every day, and, release Kanye West's, home address and phone number, was that something that a platform should allow, right? I'm just giving you an example, and I could say, oh, but it's free speech, And so this is sort of the thing that where, like, it's a company like a Twitter or Facebook or even a YouTube would say, we're happy to have you on the platform, but there's certain things we just don't want you to be doing, like saying a bunch of swear words all the time or releasing people's phone numbers, just for example. Parler, though, doesn't really have any such limitations, so you can pretty much say anything and everything all that you want. And I think their bot controls are not quite as good as other platforms. But Kanye, he wants to buy this thing, and I'll give you guys the reason. You can see here. We're using this as a net for people who have been bullied by the thought police to come and speak their mind, he said. This is Kanye. Express how you feel. Express what's tied up inside of you. Express what's been haunting you. I use social media as my therapist, which is really funny. It makes sense. I haven't thought of it that way, that people like Kanye use social media as their therapist. This is also really interesting. Billionaire Elon Musk, who has an agreement to buy Twitter for $44 billion, says he spoke with Ye last week after his Twitter froze his account. Ye said Musk didn't advise him on buying Parler in that conversation, and he came to the decision on his own. So this is actually really funny. Like, what did the Elon Musk and Ye talk about? So, for example, there is a possibility that Elon Musk is like, yo, Kanye, I can let you on Twitter because I own Twitter now, essentially. I can let you on, but let's kind of cut out that crazy stuff. And, there's certain things that I just don't want you to be posting, like no naked pictures, this kind of things, or whatever Kanye wants to post. And Kanye's like, yo, Elon, free speech. I'm going to go buy my own platform. And Elon's like, all right, go for it. So that's my guess. I'd be curious your guys' thoughts. You could read it another way where Elon's like, yo, you should buy social media platforms. It's really fun. But I don't know if he would do that. And I don't know. It's Elon's talking to everybody these days. It's really funny. And speaking of social media and things like this nature, Kakao stock actually crashed. It's pretty crazy. I think it went down like 9%, something like that. And I mentioned to you guys before, if you ever visited Korea, you would know this. Kakao has like 92% market share in Korea. It's crazy. So basically, it's a messaging service, a payment service. It's kind of like PayPal plus WhatsApp plus Uber. It's a pretty big app, and essentially their service went down, and people are like, "Whoa, maybe it's not so good to have monopolies." And I do agree with that. Regarding the war in Russia, also just give you a quick update in there. I saw this article, and this is something that we talked about earlier today. Basically, Russia is pulling people off the streets to just join the military, and as it turns out, they're not giving these people. So one is you're just grabbing people off the streets, to join, which is not so great. And then the other thing is too, they're not really training these people, giving them weapons or anything like that, and they're just being used as cannon fodder. So it is not a good situation for regular Russian people, and in fact. Russians are running for the border, and there's also stories, because I'm here in Korea, that Russians are actually coming here to Korea to seek asylum. So, I hope this will end soon. I always keep saying that, and I feel sorry for the regular Russian people. And I mean, I get it. There's no reason why you want to go and attack your neighbor. You're better off just leaving the country. So now they're just grabbing people on the street and essentially putting them in harm's way. So it's not a good situation at all. And a related story too as well is so when Russia takes over like a city, there's still workers at the nuclear plant, right? And if you want things to be safe, the workers can't just leave, so they're going to stay there. But essentially, what's going on is Russia's trying to coerce them to cooperate even more. And there was a recent story yesterday we talked about where Russia wanted a musician to play, a Ukrainian musician to play in a concert, and he refused, and so they just shot him. So there's still a war going on. It's pretty horrible. And like I said, I hope this ends soon. But just wanted to let you guys know some of these stories that are happening. In China, it's interesting. We talk about EVs a lot. Remember, Tesla's reporting on Wednesday. It turns out BYD is still doing pretty well over China. That's the Warren Buffett-backed EV vehicle company in China. So they seem to have profits going up. And in a related story, and this is why I talked about it before, when I read the news, you're just looking for trends. You're trying to see which direction are things going. That's how you do well in the market. You figure out where the trends are. Stellantis is like, you know what? We may just leave China altogether. And this is sort of something that I have been mentioning to you guys of, as Xi is coming to power. It's tough because one is he's trying to rein in control of Chinese companies, but also two, like what's going to happen to foreign companies. And then we have the whole chip thing where the employees, if you're an American and you're working, say, with a Chinese chip company, you basically have to choose: do I stay and maybe possibly lose my citizenship, or do I keep my citizenship and just leave, right? These kind of things. And so it is a situation that is tough for foreign companies because, one, the economy in China is slowing, and two, the politics are really, really souring. And then the last bit of news, which we talked about before, BTS, if you're a fan, this is the biggest pop band in the world. They're going to be going into the military, and it looks like essentially the band is broken up until about 2025. So that's a couple years from now. They'll be back because actually the military service has been shortened. It used to be 2 years, but now it's like a year and a half-ish. And I say half-ish because who knows, as North Korea seems to be ramping up a bunch of crazy, tests and stuff like that. So anyway, I hope all this stuff is useful and helpful for you guys. I hope you understand the talks that we do every day about like how I see the markets and what numbers I'm looking at. And you know what? You can do well if you understand where you are in the market and sort of follow the news closely like I do. So please come back in this channel and we'll do these things together, share some thoughts. I always love to hear you guys' opinions. And this has been your daily Uncut News.